Hi, I'm Dani Leitner, and this is SEO in 2025.
Dani, what's your number one SEO tip for 2025?
My tip is to focus on one topic to gain topical authority.
One topic. Okay, so how niche does that topic have to be?
That's a really good question. It shouldn't be too broad, because then you could just write 100 years and will never get topical authority. So you should really think about how to make it more specific. Niche can be, if we think about a bike shop, it can be e-bikes. But if we think bigger about like Decathlon does sport, one niche would be bikes. So it depends also on what you offer, how niche you can actually go. Because if you have a lot of services and products, maybe you can't go too niche on one really specific topic with your whole website.
So if you have lots of products and services, does that stop you from being precise topical authority in a topic?
I think yes. I think actually this tip is more for small and medium-sized businesses that have some specific services and products that are really focused on one topic. Because if you have and you want to show everything on your website, then it's really hard. Where do you start? Where should you go? Where do you want your topical authority to be? Do you want that Google just ranks you? Let's keep with the example of Decathlon. Would Decathlon want that he just ranks for bikes? For sure not, because there's running, there is tennis, and all the other sports Decathlon is offering as well. So in this case, it would be like, what should you choose? So it's too complicated to really go for just one topic.
And in terms of what should you choose, is it all about what you want to be topical authority on? Or is it about analysing the SERP and perhaps the other competition out there to see what else exists and what you may have an opportunity to rank for?
I think first of all, it should be a business decision. Because if you decide for something that's easier to rank, but you don't have the business for it, it's not your offering, then it's actually a bad choice. Why would you want to rank for something you're not selling? So in the first place, it's always also working with clients as a SEO consultant. It's always interesting when you come with an idea and he says like, yeah, but for these products, we have actually don't have a lot of possibility to sell more or not that. And they're just like, okay, then we're not optimizing. So it's always the first step is the business decision. What is my business actually about? And then you can decide. I normally recommend to choose 2 to 3 subtopics about your topic to dive into and decide on which one you really have a chance to rank. Because of course it can be that one subtopic would be just too hard to start with.
I want to emphasize what you said there. Why are you optimizing for something that you're not selling? Because I think it's easy as SEOs to love ranking and to love bringing in traffic. But if that traffic doesn't do anything when you're on your website, if it's not converting, not actually contributing towards your bottom line, why are you doing it?
Yeah, I think you should always start. I'm actually always with my clients start with a business model to know where do they make their money, what are they doing, what are they selling, what is their best-selling product and service to actually get to know the business. You can try to rank for anything, but in the end, if it doesn't help to sell something or to help your business, you will run out of money to spend on SEO. So their goal is that they get more money so they can spend more on SEO for us.
That's a good goal. Yeah, get more money. Why is Google focusing more on topical authority?
I think in the last year, with everything of the artificial intelligence, more content is going out. It's really easy to write high surface content about any topic, and it's getting harder and harder that search engines and Google trust you as the expertise. And that's what's behind the idea of topical authority, that you really show on your website, on other websites, I'm the expert, I know what I'm talking about, until search engines and of course users and clients trust you in this topic. Especially now with all the content, because the web gets bigger and bigger. So how to choose what goes on page 1? The one you most trust. So I think that's why it's even more important now than 5 or 10 years ago.
So how does Google go about determining that you are the topical authority for a particular area?
First, it takes time because you really need to show that you're the expert. And actually, in the Google Leak, we had some things that showed that Google actually looks at, or at least we can interpret it like that, looks at what is the main topic of your website. After that, what is the topic of the page that it wants to rank, and how close it is to your topic and your expertise to decide if it can trust the content or not.
So what's the process for actually deciding on your topical authority, apart from the fact that you're deciding based upon your products and services? Obviously, there's so many different angles and slants. Is it a case of looking at the SERP and seeing what exists for a particular keyword phrase and then trying to create something different and unique for users? Or do you have a better process that you can think of?
I actually like to start with the smallest search volume. I know it sounds really strange for SEO to look at the keywords with the smallest search volume, but I think deciding one, it's like in real life when you want to show off your expertise. When I want to show you that I'm really good at SEO, I'm not talking about snippets and H1, because that's just like, yeah, she read one article about SEO and on-page optimization. But if you're really talking about specific questions user might have and answer, like really the one that not everybody is writing about, you can really show, hey, I'm an expert here on this specific topic, not just on the most broad one that ChatGPT can answer. So that's why I like to actually reverse the keyword research and start with the smallest and most niche and long tail keywords.
Okay, great. But you're obviously doing that strategically. You've already worked out the category of topic that you want to be an authority on, and you build down and drill down into keywords that have very low search volume but are hyper relevant towards what you do.
Yeah, exactly. So first thing is always choosing a topic, of course. Where I said like choose 1, 2, 3 subtopics maybe to start with, so you can actually search them, because there can also be like a subtopic doesn't really have any search. So it's just like, okay, I can write one article about it, but that's just too niche. Then make the keyword research, the competition research, what's out there. And then I would start with the low volume keywords and build my way up. And then for sure, when you come to if you make like a hub and spoke model, when you come to the hub, you already built so much content around it that your hub will look different than the other ones. So you're already differentiating.
And how do you go about determining the type of content that you need to create? Because some queries might require a short answer or a long answer, or perhaps even a different form of content.
I would think here like also really wide, because I would also not just think about your website. Not everything needs to be published on your website, because nowadays you see it if you Google something, if you look up something on Perplexity, it takes into account all these other websites. So you want to show up on other websites. You want to show up on a podcast like this to talk about the topic, about something specific, and to think a little bit bigger. And on the website, I really would respond what is most relevant to your clients, to the people that get your service or your product, so they could actually find the answers on your website. But with product, you can actually go out there. I would do more than just one thing, not just put out text, but maybe also YouTube account. Also put some snippets of the blog you posted on LinkedIn, on social media, on a picture, on Instagram. So like really go, like everything you can get out of your content, get it.
Yeah, I think we should start a new verb, to perplexiate, but it doesn't run off the tongue quite as smoothly, does it?
Yeah. Because Googling on Perplexity is a little bit strange.
Perplexitying on Google is perhaps even more challenging, but I need to stop saying that word. What does this do for a small brand's ability to compete with bigger brands, to focus on topical authorities? Does it give them a greater opportunity?
I think yes, because I think when you're really small, it's really hard to get into the SERPs, especially if you think about your topic. Oh, I'm now being competition to, I don't know, Adidas, if you're a brand of sport clothes. And yeah, just like, how will I ever be competition to them or get there? Because they have a huge budget. They can just get out content there. So if you decide on a really small topic, you can actually really concentrate, especially if you go to the long-term keywords, because all these big brands won't go for long-term keywords because they don't have a lot of search volume. So why even try? And you can really build your brand there. And the best thing, if you really get really good at this niche, people will remember your brand and associate it. Okay, you're the expert in this. So they might just want to read your content and not of someone else.
How do you go about selecting your long tail keywords? I mean, is it as simple as putting a more generic, shorter tail keyword into Google and then seeing what comes up for people also ask?
Also helps, but most of the time the people also ask is after 3 questions, it's going like really broad and far away from your topic. So you really need to look out for the people also ask questions. When I do a keyword research, the first half of the keyword research is just searching keywords on different tools. And I'm actually...
What's your favorite tools?
SEMrush.
Okay.
And I'm actually going to the zero search. So I really not just look at the most highest ones, but at the one that they actually say with 0 searches. And there I really love to change also tools, because not every tool has the same set of keywords. So I sometimes go also on Google Keyword Planner to see a little bit more. Sometimes it's really a gold mine what you find there. You go on the 0 search volume things, or 10. Maybe in English it works with 10, but in German 10 is already like really great. So you need to go to the 0 ones. You have some really specific questions people might ask, or really specific topics that you think like, oh, that's actually a problem my client has. And another idea is really to go, if you are already in business a longer time, you might know what your clients are asking. What are the questions that they tell you? And just write something about it to answer it already on your website. Because somebody, before asking you, might just search.
They might search or they might discover, because it depends what platform they're on. You mentioned earlier on that you could optimize for other platforms depending on the style of content, the specific niche or keyword phrase that you're targeting. So how do you know where you should be engaging to find your audience?
That, of course, depends a lot on your business. For example, I have one client that's in the jewelry business, in the luxury one. And there, the best thing they can engage with is Instagram, because there are a lot of images relevant. So you really want to see images of jewelry. So their Instagram is great. LinkedIn, maybe not so, because you're not looking for your engagement ring on LinkedIn. So it's really depending on your business. And there it helps, where is the competition? Where are the big brands of my niche? Like I want to know where is Moss, where is Majestic, where are they publishing, where are all these platforms I'm using in SEO, where are they publishing most, and where do they get the most interaction as well, and where can I get out most of that.
If an SEO is struggling for time, what should they stop doing right now so they can spend more time doing what you suggest in 2025?
I think we should stop focusing on high volume search keywords, because these are the ones where all the big brands are going to, where a lot of competition is, and it's really hard to get in there. So we really should go more long tail, I think.
How much volume, monthly volume, is a high volume keyword?
That's really hard to say for me, because I'm focused on the German speaking market. There I think it's really different, because in the German speaking market, 500 plus is high. I think in the English it's not so much, but I haven't done a lot of keywords research in English, so I'm not sure about that, to be honest.
I mean, I guess it depends on your existing authority and what you may have an opportunity to rank for. Are there any specific metrics that you look at to determine what your existing authority of your website is in relation to competitors?
Yes, one thing is to not just look at specific articles, but look at the whole topic. Because normally if you get topical authority and you put more content out there, every article will rank higher for the same topic. So you really want to have an overview of how is the topic working out and not just these specific articles. And one thing I really love to look about is brand keyword researches. Because especially the ones where you have a keyword and somebody adds the brand in the end, because that normally means like, okay, they know you already and they want to read your opinion about it and your expertise and maybe haven't found it on page 1. So they thought like, oh, I just add the brand because I want actually to read from this person. And if you get this, then you, at least in the heads of people, you already have the topical authority. And that's a really good signal.
Dani Leitner is an independent SEO consultant. You can find her over at danileitner.ch. Dani, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2025.
Thanks.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2025, the book, over at SEOin2025.com.